Evidence can match the day that darkness at midday fell over Mexico City, and not one, but dozens of people caught something out of this world on tape. July 11th, 1991. A total eclipse of the sun begins to dim the skies over Mexico City. Hundreds of people pointed their video cameras upward to capture the event. For UFO researcher Guillermo Arguin, it was a remarkable sight.
I
went up to my roof to shoot the event. When I saw a shining light in the sky, I focused my camera. I understand that what I filmed is an oscillating UFO, not a planet or a star.
Arguin was not alone in what he recorded. Sergio Fuentes was celebrating the eclipse with his family when he too turned towards the sky.
My wife and kids insisted that I don't look directly at the sun without wearing any protection. I paid attention to them, and I tried to continue filming everything that happened. I kept holding the camera, making sure it was pointing at the sun.
Later, when Fuentes checked the tape, he was amazed to find that he had filmed a UFO. Over the next several days, reports of UFO sightings flooded in, causing a media frenzy. Nationally known investigative journalist Jaime Maussan hosted a marathon 10-hour program on UFOs that included a discussion of the sightings. He asked viewers to go back and look at what they recorded with their handycams.
When I presented this in television, many people called to say, I saw it. You can see clearly a shining object, looks metallic, with a black shadow underneath, a silver disc-shaped object. We believe that this was not a star or some kind of problem with the camera, distortion of the camera. The video is the evidence to prove that this is real. And that day, my life changed completely. Because from that moment on, people wanted me to talk more about UFOs than anything else.
Some find the evidence less than life-altering. Writer and skeptic Mario Mendez Acosta debated Maussan over the 91 eclipse sightings, and he thinks that the national obsession with UFOs has more to do with Maussan himself than any visitations from outer space.
Just imagine that your most widely known TV anchorman suddenly became converted into a UFO full-time believer. I think the United States, they would have fired him. It's the complete futility of all these matters that really appalls us,
Appalling or not, 13 years after the eclipse, Maussan still runs a weekly show, and his devoted viewers continue to send in supposed UFO videos.
The Mexican people embrace this phenomenon, and they have been able to produce more evidence than any other country in the world.
Indeed they have. Mexico is now a hotbed of UFO research and a prime location for observing questionable things in the sky. Groups of amateur ufologists regularly give up a night's sleep to try to make contact with the lights in the sky, meditating on them, flashing lights at them. If the truth about Mexico's UFOs is out there, it may be nearer than the stars. It may be in Stockholm. Astronomer and photographer Tom Callan is the producer of a planetarium show at the Swedish Museum of Natural History.
A lot of people nowadays don't have an understanding of the night sky. They don't even know some of the basic constellations. And so when they go outside and they see something that's unusual that they don't understand, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that, hey, that funny light in the sky, that's intelligent life, some sort of aliens are piloting some kind of a vehicle, perhaps they're in the sky, without stopping to think perhaps it's a meteor, perhaps it's a satellite.
Callan believes that the Mexico City UFO witnesses did see something truly awe-inspiring. Something beyond the surly bonds of Earth, but not necessarily something under alien control.
In the Mexico City video, we see a sky that's already darkened because the eclipse is already in progress. We see a few clouds floating around, and then the camera zooms in on this object.
Using a commercially available computer program that plots the sky on any given day from any given point on Earth, Tom will recreate what happened in the skies over Mexico on that fateful day.
Here's the sun about to be eclipsed by the moon. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run the program forward about 30 times normal speed so that you're able to see what is happening during this eclipse event.
As the computer imitates the moon passing in front of the sun, the sky darkens and several heavenly bodies brighten. In the exact spot where the UFO was recorded, bingo, an especially bright object emerges.
And here we can very clearly see we've got the planet Venus here, which is the, what I'm pretty sure is what the object is that these people in Mexico City photographed.
Venus, the second planet from the sun, and the brightest object in the sky after the sun and moon. But why does Venus look so much like a blurry alien spacecraft? Tom believes the camera itself, in trying to focus on such a bright but distant object, is creating a three-dimensional effect.
Here's Venus in the sky. This looks very much like a zoomed up image of a planet. Now we have this extreme zoom up here. This again has been slowed down quite a bit, and we can see some effects of moving the camera around. That dark line that we're seeing here, that's not the underside of anything in particular. That what we're seeing is an artifact from the camera. It just takes and makes a common, everyday celestial object look kind of mysterious.
But not so fast. Everyday celestial objects can't be responsible for all of Mexico's UFO sightings. Take, for example, this remarkable object seen hovering in the vicinity of an active volcano called Popocatépetl. That's clearly not a planet or a star, and it certainly isn't behaving like an airplane. The object was captured on video by architect Mario Ramirez, who lives in the shadows of the volcano. Like many here, he believes that volcanic activity attracts the UFOs to Mexico. And he claims to have seen an entire fleet of ships fly into the crater back in 1988.
Empecé a investigar esto porque vi una nave muy grande.
I saw a very big ship, about 300 meters in diameter. It had a lot of lights and windows. It spun on its center, then advanced towards the volcano. I have seen them go in and come out in groups of 30 at incredible speeds, going towards space. They live in the center of the volcano.
Back in 2000, Ramirez was studying a stone formation near the volcano that he thinks is some sort of ancient astronomy textbook, when something caught his attention.
Estaba yo aquí en esta piedra, haciendo observaciones con el cerro Tlapaltepec.
I was here at the rock, making observations of Popo. I set up my camera, and then I saw a flash. And I wondered, why am I seeing a flash from the mountain?
What Ramirez eventually records appears to be an object that hovers over the distant mountain.
Tal vez más adelante.
I looked up, and there was a UFO up in the clouds. I thought that they were trying to communicate with me.
It remains aloft for nearly 2 minutes before disappearing behind the peak. What does our professional wet blanket, Tom Callan, think of this intriguing object?
The volcano video. That to me looks very much like a zoomed in image that, for all intents and purposes, is probably a large bird. And if you look at it, it appears to be flapping at the same time, as if there are extensions on it that are flapping, and that's something that I wouldn't expect in some kind of a extraterrestrial vehicle of any kind either.
Of course, not all unidentified flying objects are simply cases of mistaken identity. Some appear suspiciously like cheap old special effects, or the occasional pie tin tossed into the sky. Enough with the video evidence. What about close encounters of the second kind? The cases where the UFO reportedly leaves actual physical evidence behind. We'll be looking at the footprints of a supposed UFO and asking what on earth could have made them. In September 2004, a series of rings appeared on a small, isolated patch of land near Guadalajara. The landowner called in architect and UFO researcher Daniel Dominguez and his team to investigate. They spent a few nights observing the field, and sure enough, a spherical light appeared.
It passed directly over us, and its intensity of light went up. Then the light got lower, and it continued its trajectory.
Dominguez claims that the light made changes in the grass that no man-made object could cause. For 4 weeks, they've been mapping out the circles and measuring their growth. They're also taking soil samples to test for radiation, which Dominguez believes caused the circles.
We got this sample on September 17th. As you can see, the grass has a greener tone, and the blade's width is bigger than the rest of it. And this shows us that it was subjected to this radiation. From the evidence we've gotten, I'm inclined to think that these circles are products of a light energy that is produced by an object that comes from further away than the stars.
But Dr. Laura Guzman thinks the answer may be really down to earth. She is a mycologist at the University of Guadalajara, Mexico's first lady of fungus, so to speak. But what on earth does fungus have to do with UFOs?
This is a very big piece of mycelium growing around maybe a piece of wood or root.
Eureka! Fungal mycelium. Why should we care? Because mycelium grows outward from a central point in rings, often called fairy rings. Some fungi will create a ring of dead grass, but others will actually fertilize the grass and cause it to be greener and lusher in the circle than in the surrounding area, especially if it's being fed by rotting organic matter like dead tree roots.
These pieces of wood stimulate the growth of the fungi, and that's why sometimes there are many fairy rings growing, because there are wood under the soil. In my scientific opinion, I think that the thing that causes the fairy rings is a fungus, and there is no another explanation.
But there are actually many thousands of fungi found in soil, and only 50 are known to cause the rings. To confirm that this is a fungus responsible for fairy rings, Dr. Guzman takes the sample back to her lab and puts it under the microscope. She looks for a telltale sign, a small protrusion on individual fungal cells, and confirms her suspicions.
The fairy rings that we saw today were formed by fungi.
What about Dominguez's claim that these rings were caused by radiation from the UFO? Dr. Guzman had the sample tested and found no elevated levels of any radiation. So this close encounter of the second kind turns out to be a close encounter of the mushroom kind. Mexico is awash in encounters of the first, second, and third